Pansy, she can function just enough where, like you look at her too, she looks normal from a distance, right? To the point where, a dude drives up to her and like, are you going to leave this parking spot? They can have that interaction, right? It's not readily apparent. And that's part of the tragedy of it, right? You look at when they have that dinner, that Mother's Day dinner, or that brunch, that lunch, right? That is just such an effective scene. The silence and the reflection of that on the husband and the son. I think the husband is far more gone than the son. There's a glint of hope in the son. The husband is just as a husk of a man. It's so sad. And that dinner scene. I just want to shout out that dinner scene because that was like that's the climax, right?
Yeah,
of it for me. I'm sorry, I lost the sauce on what your question was, but
it blows you away though, and just sort of the understated humanity of this movie too, and that's what Mike Leigh's movies are really famous for, is just kind of drawing on big emotions through simple like premise.
live and online. It's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Back and better than ever, it's Sleepless with Steve live on YouTube. We come to you live and in living color every Wednesday evening, 6:30 Central Time, 6:30 on the dot. That countdown was started at perfect timing. Appreciate you, Joe. Good to have Joe back, too. We were off last week, had a week hiatus. Joe's been absent for a couple of weeks, so it's good to have the gang back together once again to talk about a new Spike Lee joint. It's been a minute. Since we heard from Spike. 5 years. Long minute. The first year we revived Sleepless. First couple of months we revived Sleepless. It was Da 5 Bloods.
Yeah.
Back in June of 2020 was the last Spike Lee movie that we got. And he's still ubiquitous. You see him if you ever watch primetime Knicks games, you will see him in the audience for
he
sure.
Was there all last season too during the playoffs.
During the playoffs, yeah, it was a constant competition between him and Timothy Chalamet for who could get more screen time during the Knicks finals run last year. But yeah, so you can still see him. God, do you guys, right off the top of my head, do you guys hate anything as much as Spike Lee hates Boston?
Yeah, really?
Green Bay, maybe. I mean, like, that's probably...
Yeah, I know. Like, I was thinking, I thought about that. I was like, if I ever made a movie like this with so many like thinly veiled shots to the rivals, I'm like, yeah, there'd probably be some Green Bay slander in there too. You know what I mean? There'd probably be some Wisconsin slander somewhere baked into my movie too. No, I love his hatred for the Celtics. I think it's absolutely riveting. But his movie Highest to Lowest is now streaming on Apple Plus TV. It's also in select theaters. We're going to talk about that. That's going to be the main meat of the show today, too. So it's good to be back. Next week, I might as well say this because this movie, I will say, like, I heard about it, but it really feels like the marketing campaign has upped now in the last, 3 weeks. And this movie has really just taken on a life of its own in terms of just marketing and press and publicity and anticipation as The Long Walk, which comes out this weekend, which we'll be reviewing on the show next week. And I'm really excited for that one. I got high hopes for it. I love the trailer, or at least the spots I've been seeing on TV intermittently. I haven't watched the full trailer, but the spots I've seen, I've really enjoyed. I noticed Shabuzi did a song for it as well. Shabuzi's on the Long Walk soundtrack.
Oh.
Like everybody on the walk getting athlete's feet. That's what the song should be, But anyway, at any rate, good to have.
No, they play his song in the full trailer. Actually, that's probably why you haven't known about that.
He's everywhere now too, Shabuzi,
Yeah.
and I like the guy. And I don't mean to sound like a hipster over here, but I did know I did know him though. I did know him before a bar song because he dropped a country trap album that was called Cowboys Never Die, Outlaws Live Forever, I believe it's called. And he's got a really good song on that album. It's called Tall Boy. He's got a couple of good songs on that album, and he stuck out to me. One of my favorite artists who I've mentioned in the past, Rumor, was on that album, and that's how I found him back in 2022. So then when he did a bar song, I'm like, wait a minute, I know this guy. And I was like, yeah, it's the same dude that made Tall Boy, which was just in a movie recently. I was trying to think. It was just in a movie recently, the song Tall Boy, and I got happy. Anyway, though, he even does the Thursday night football. He's got a song for Thursday night football, I noticed, too. I don't know if you noticed it, Joe, in some of the promos. I don't know what song it is, but it's the same tune to a bar song. I've noticed it during a couple of the NFL promos. It's the same melody. It's like, we gonna paint the town, we gonna let them know. It's the same melody, but it's themed for football.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't looked into that, but it sounds catchy. Anyway, Shabuzi. But anyway, we are back. Sleepless with Steve, live and in living color. Dominic Guanzon, Joe Viso. Could not do this show without them. And if I did, I'd be talking to myself. And I did that once before on the college radio station. And I do not miss those days of talking to myself. So I'm grateful to have people to talk to. Dom, Joe. Dom, how are you today, my friend?
Yeah, doing well, doing all right. It's been a whirlwind couple of weeks here in Chicagoland. Particularly in the city where I regularly visit. And yeah, everyone is taking it to the streets, to quote the Doobie Brothers. And we will see what will happen in the coming weeks. I know Mexican Independence Day is a very jam-packed, literally, they jam the streets with cars in celebration. Personally, I enjoy that, there's just something about a city being really rambunctious in a healthy way. Maybe not like when Philly wins a Super Bowl. That's kind of scary. Where
Yes.
people are like, that's scary. But Mexican Independence Day, people are rowdy. The crowds are just completely jam packed, and it's a little bit of chaos. But no one's greased up trying to climb up a pole and then like stabbing each other. Right? It's not Philly on those kind of days. Or like the old days here in Chicago, where whenever we beat the Pacers, there would be riots back in
Yeah.
like the 90s. Right.
Oh, the Bulls riots. Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously I was a mere child, but I've always heard about him. But regardless, no, it's good. It's all right. Trying to catch up on things, and just a reminder that you can actually you don't have to post anything online. You don't actually have to give commentary on the day's events. That's a legal thing you can do according to experts. You can just not say anything. That's cool.
I know my lane. I know my lane on this. When you said
Exactly.
people are going to take to the streets on Chicago, when you said people are going to take to the streets, I'd be like, yeah, man, I was promised something completely different from Ben Johnson, and I'm infuriated right now. That's absolutely
You
the
stole
case.
my joke. God damn it, dude. I was gonna use that.
I believe you. I believe
I was told Caleb and Ben were going to save the Bears. I wanted to riot on Monday too. Joe, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. Despite like kind of going off what Steve was saying, despite the embarrassment from the Bears, I wasn't as hurt by it as I was with some of the games last season. Because some of the games last season was just watching like a slow car crash or a slow like train wreck happen unfold in real time. Monday was like they took the lead by a lot, not a lot, but like a good enough that it's like, hey, get one more touchdown on the board. This game's basically done, especially in the fourth quarter. Oh my God, we're done. And they just couldn't punch it in, and I just went, yeah, they're gonna blow it. I'm like, they're gonna blow it, and then they did, and I wasn't surprised by it. I kind of went like, all right, it's what it is. I'm trying not to have an overreaction Monday like everybody else does week 1 of the NFL, where they're saying their teams are going to the Super Bowl, like the Colts. Like, okay, come on, guys. You're not going
I
to
know,
the Super
right?
Bowl.
I know, right? Yeah. Like y'all ain't a 5-win team.
That was us last season. We won that game against the Titans. I said, oh, that's it. The Bears are going to be different. And it's like not realizing like, yeah, no, the offense didn't put up a single point that game. It was special teams and defense. So yeah, despite all that, I've been okay. I got to see My Chemical Romance. That was
Nice.
unreal.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Can I tell you something funny? Is that
What's up?
I was out in the city visit. I think it was like probably a jazz show, statistically speaking, but I was out there and I get to what was it? Clarkin, I forget. One of the L lines in the loop.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the doors open up and just come out pouring are all these emo goth kids. And I'm like, oh, that was tonight, wasn't it?
Yeah. Dude, and let me tell you, that is I loved My Chemical Romance growing up, and then as I got older, like I just didn't listen to them as much. You know, it was just kind of a thing I listened to when I was younger. So going back and like listening to them, getting ready for the concert, I was excited. I shit you not, that's one of the best shows I've ever been to. I think their stage presence is great. I think what the storyline they told on stage and the production value they had on there of it being a fascist country, and that was like the whole thing about the Black Parade album and everything and how they did that. I'm like, that was great. And their encore set was phenomenal. The crowd was great. I've gone to several concerts recently, and I've been really pissed off with crowds not singing, or in some cases not even standing during like the hype moments of like songs and everything. And it's just like, hey, come on, guys, this is the encore. At least stand up. The whole time, crowd was into it from beginning to start. I mean, from beginning to end. And cherry on top, unlike LA and New York, we got the guest artists. We got Smashing Pumpkins on stage with them, and it was fucking awesome. So, yeah, other than that, I had a great Labor Day weekend because I didn't get to see you guys for that. I had a friend fly in from out of town for the concert, and we got to show him around Chicago a lot more compared to the previous times he's been out here. And, yeah, I'm just ready to get back to talking movies and everything.
Grateful to have you back. We'll dive into Highest to Lowest, the Spike Lee movie, brand new Spike Lee movie, now streaming on Apple Plus TV. I sound okay, correct? I sound good?
Yes.
Yeah.
I bumped my mic and I worried I turned my
Annoying,
gain
but
up.
quality-wise, it's good.
I bumped my mic and I was worried I turned my gain level up. So Highest to lowest, Spike Lee's new movie, first movie, like I said before, in 5 years. The last movie he made was Da 5 Bloods. He's had sort of a really interesting last 15 years as a director, because I've seen all of his movies now since 2012. He's gone through different phases as a filmmaker for sure. He had this incredible run in the late 80s, early 90s when had School Days, She Gotta Have It, Do the Right Thing. Then his budgets kind of got cut a little bit in the 90s. And he made some interesting movies, some very interesting movies like Girl 6, Get on the Bus, which is one of my favorites by his, that I think is one of his most underseen. Then he did, I think, probably right alongside Get on the Bus, another one of his most underseen movies is 25th Hour. I don't know if you guys have seen that or heard of that movie. 25th
There's
Hour
only
with
24 hours in a day.
it's Ed Norton, and it's basically the last 24 hours of freedom he has before he has to do a 7-year prison sentence for drugs. And it's a really one of Spike Lee's absolute best movies. Like a top three. I think if I had to make a top three of his, it's Do the Right Thing, 25th Hour, and Get on the Bus. For my top three for Lee. That's a phenomenal one, though. One of the best Edward Norton performances, too. And then in the recent time, though, he's kind of been a little bit more all over the place. He did that weird remake of Old Boy back in 2013 with Josh Brolin, which nobody saw.
We don't talk about that.
He did Chirac, which was interesting, albeit kind of odd. You know what I mean? Like a very very odd movie, but a good movie. Black Klansman obviously kind of vaunted him back into like sort of mainstream status. That was a huge success and also got a handful of Oscar nominations. And then more recently, he's been making movies in collaboration with streaming services. Da 5 Bloods was on Netflix. Highest to Lowest is on Apple TV Plus. This is the 5th collaboration between him and Denzel Washington. It's their first in 19 years. The last movie they made together was, does anybody remember?
Is it Inside
2006? Man? Inside Man is correct. Yeah. Yes, indeed. Inside Man, they did Inside Man, Malcolm X, Mo Better Blues, He Got Game, and Highest to Lowest. Those are the 5 Denzel Spike collaborations, too. This movie also is another remake of Akira Kurosawa's movie High and Low, which I will admit right off the bat is unseen by me, which is always interesting when you go into a movie. All right, so we're 3 blind mice. What's interesting is when you go into a movie that's a remake and you're not familiar with the remake. I know of it. I've seen a handful of Kurosawa movies, not that one though. But this movie basically, I know High and Low. I know the gist of High and Low. It's essentially about a Japanese businessman who's kind of like this shoe mogul. Who tries to leverage a buyout of his company with his life savings, and then his chauffeur's son gets kidnapped with the kidnapper thinking he took his son, which is really the same premise of this movie. But from what I understand, the second half of Highest to Lowest is radically different from anything that happens in High and Low. The movie basically uses the framework, the plot of High and Low as a launch pad to get things moving. So in this movie, Denzel plays David King. He's a New York City music mogul. He's said to have the best ears in the business. He's got a great record label name, Stackin' Hits Records, that he sold majority stake to, but he wants to buy it back. And it's going to take a lot of money to buy this record company back. So essentially then what happens is a kidnapper kidnaps the son of his chauffeur, played by Jeffrey Wright from American Fiction, kidnaps Jeffrey Wright's son, thinking it's David King's son, and is now demanding, I think it's $17.5 million for the safe return of the kid. That's kind of where I'll leave it then, too, because this is one of those movies where, like, the kidnapping is not the whole movie.
Yeah.
It's like half the movie. It's half the movie. And then like the first half of the movie is kind of like a crime drama mystery. The second half of the movie is a little bit more traditional Spike Lee insofar in that it's a little bit more, it's less grounded to plot. It's more married to characters. It's more married to situations than it is plot developments. You have a litany of great performers in this movie too. A$AP Rocky is in this playing a rapper with the name Young Felon, which is very creative. Elfinesh Hedera is in the movie too, who plays David King's wife. And there's a handful of other recognizable faces. This is the cinematic debut of one Isis Gaston, also known as Ice Spice, for what that is worth to you guys. I'm not a fan of her music. I don't know if you guys are. But
I'm not. Like, I know there's a lot of people out there that like Ice Spice. And they told me, dude, you'll love her. If you like Meg and you like Cardi, you'll love her. And then they put it on, and I was like, yeah, you know what? Turn this off. I'm sorry. Like,
I like Nicki. I like Megan. I like Cardi. I don't care for Ice Spice.
I don't either.
You know, we don't hate all women on this show,
Yeah.
contrary to what some might believe.
Just because we're three guys, we don't.
You know. Catherine and I always talk about that. I hate how men always, like, I feel like men think they're making some sort of grandiose statement or some edgelord statement when they're like they talk about how much they hate Nicki Minaj, and I'm like, I really like Nicki Minaj.
Yeah.
I think Nicki Minaj is funny as shit.
It's
She's
the
a
same
great
when
rapper.
it's the same with Meg and Cardi as well. Like, I had guys being like, yeah, Meg's such like a terrible artist, right? I'm like, no.
Oh, she's
I think out of all the female rappers right now, she's like top 5 for me.
Oh, Megan the Stallion can freestyle with anybody too. If you've ever heard
Yeah.
her freestyle, she can freestyle with anybody. She is hilarious. She's filthy. She's funny.
Yeah.
And she's got great hooks. No, I'm a big fan of all of them. Not so much Ice Spice though. She's not bad here. I'm jumping a little bit all around though with this movie too. I'm really interested to see what you guys have to say about this. I just watched this movie today too, so I'm very fresh with this as well.
Okay.
But I think just as a launch point, I'll just say, this movie, in some ways, too, kind of feels like Spike Lee's sort of statement on the modern times. It's not this way. I don't want to get this misconstrued. There's no formal breaking of the fourth wall in this movie, but it feels like there is. Most notably, one scene when Denzel Washington complains about the how virality and like AI have infiltrated and sort of become are starting to define the music industry, and that's not the music industry he broke into or wanted to get into, but that's just a sign of the times. That scene in particular, along with a couple others, makes me feel like it's Spike Lee talking, about the current state of things. Like, in a world that only sees like these billion-dollar movies as true successes, what does it mean to have a creative success on a smaller scale? What does it mean to try to replicate the past? Because that's what this whole movie's about, a music mogul that is trying to buy back his empire, in so many words. There's quite a bit to chew on here. I'm interested to see what you guys have to say. I'll start with you, Joe.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that stuff up. Because it's definitely, those are definitely moments in the movie where it feels like, yeah, okay, this is what Spike wants to say with this movie. That, and also how much he hates Boston. Which there are 3 big scenes where it's just like they bring up the Celtics or just the Red Sox, and it's just like, oh my God, bro, we get it. Yeah, for me, I also think, Spike's been big into the hip hop and R&B scene, rap scene as well when it comes to New York. And I feel like that's also like, this movie's kind of like also a love letter to just the rap scene of there as well as just New York as a whole. New York is almost like a character in this movie at times, especially during one entire sequence where literally we get a cameo from Anthony Ramos, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? And it just leads to just a scene of just showing the characteristics of New York with something like Washington Heights, and then something like the Bronx, and it keeps going on for more. It keeps going all over the place and whatnot. It really does a great job playing with that. I loved seeing Spike and oh my God, I almost said John David Washington. This is embarrassing. Denzel Washington, or Denzel Washington, as somebody pointed out. Somebody as in Denzel himself. I love seeing them back together again. I feel like if there's somebody that like knows how to get the best Denzel performance out of Denzel, it's Spike Lee. Like, I know so many people go like, oh, he's just playing Denzel Washington. He's just being Denzel Washington. Yeah, but when he does that, he's really good at doing that. And even then, he get lost in a character while still having like some characteristics that you find in a lot of Denzel Washington like characters.
Yeah, I've been seeing him play The Equalizer for several years now, and I'm like, yeah, that's Denzel Washington, and that's not the kind that I necessarily enjoy as an actor,
Yeah. So like in here, it was great to see them paired up again and everything. And I actually want to say too, like even Jeffrey Wright, him being in the movie was a big surprise too, because I was like, oh shit, like how the fuck has him and Spike Lee not worked together anytime soon? Um, I will say though, as much praise as I'm giving this, and I'll go back to it. I watched this movie in halves, and that is because the first half I was not feeling this movie at all. When it's being a police procedural movie and it is setting everything up, a lot of this movie was not working for me. I don't think most of the cast is that good. I don't think Denzel Washington's wife in this movie, the character's wife, I should say, David King, his wife. I don't think the actress that played her was all too good. I thought all the cops were kind of bad, and I hate to say it because I love this man and his commercials. But the guy that plays Mayhem in Allstate, he was a bit stereotypical for me when it came to being like the angry New York cop. And like I was just kind of like, yeah, I'm just not being sold on any of this.
That was him. Dean Winters is his name.
Dean Winters, thank you. I was going on IMDb to find it. Trey King, who played by Aubrey Joseph, is the son of David King. He's not in the movie a whole lot when he's there. He's just all right. Jeffrey Wright, even there are some scenes where Jeffrey Wright is good, and then there's some scenes where Jeffrey Wright tries to act street tough, and I don't know if it's because I saw American Fiction, but it's just like I just can't buy into this. I'm sorry, it's just hard sell for me right now. I will say I was a bit more surprised with ASAP Rocky, and I'll go into that later. But for the most part, the first half of this movie, I was like, damn, this is really just a police procedural movie, and it's really bland, which sucks to say because the last time Washington and Spike Lee paired up was Inside Man, and that's a great police procedural movie. I love that movie. That's a great one. This one, I'm just like, it's just not working here. And the score in this movie, it's good, but I don't like how Spike used it. Like, on its own, I like listening to the music. But when it's, like, playing during scenes, or it literally comes in scene after scene after scene, it kind of started taking me out of the movie. And I was
it consumes the movie.
It really does. And that's even with the second half, too. But the second half has an advantage to it. I was like, shit, this is not what I was expecting. I mean, I was really looking forward to this movie, like, being that it's these two paired up again. It's A24. It's coming to Apple TV. All the stuff. I decided to turn it off. I was like, I'll finish it up the following night. I watched it the following night, as in yesterday, and I gotta say, it actually won me back over. The second half of this movie, it picks up a lot better. And granted, maybe I like it more than, because I've seen people's reviews of this. I probably like it more because I'm not familiar with Kurosawa's version of this story, and maybe that's why I think the second half is better, because I've seen people say the movie as a whole just doesn't work for them. The second half to me works better because we spend more time with David King, and we really get to learn a lot more about David King and who he is as a person. And we kind of see that towards the end of the first half too, when he has to make a choice of giving up the 17.5 million for not even his own son and everything. And I love how the second half, like, him doing what he does to, like, bring us to the second half of the movie, how much it helps and also doesn't help him. And it's just like, oh, this is actually, like, really interesting. Upon to where he has to start taking matters into his own hands and everything with Paul, played by Jeffrey Wright. I forgot to mention that. I just mentioned Jeffrey White. And then, of course, that's when A$AP Rocky really enters the movie. And those two had one of my favorite scenes in this movie, which is the recording booth scene. I was just like, okay, I absolutely love this scene and how they're framing it and the dialogue that's being said and everything. Like, this to me, I'm like, this is great Spike Lee filmmaking right here. I love the colors being used. I love the dialogue being exchanged. I loved, it's a rapper who I'm just like, dude, you know what? For one of the few rappers who turns actors, or from the many rappers that turn actors, A$AP Rocky seems like he's one of the better ones. I was falling in love with this movie. I will admit, when we get to the big action climax of, like, it all, I thought, like, it was shot a little sloppy. A lot of the stuff that involves, like, action, I would say, in this movie is kind of shot pretty sloppy in general. But overall, the second half ended up winning me over. I've been going on for a long time. Very sorry about that. Dom, I'm going to pass it off to you.
No, that's fine. I just really want to congratulate Spike Lee for discovering the drone, like being particularly with this intro. Now, I'm being facetious. For me, I think I'm even going to be more harsh, but only in the extremes, in the sense that the first like half of this movie, at the very least, the first 20 minutes, the first third of this movie, were kind of excruciating. I was kind of like waiting for something to take off, and it just fell
That-
very flat,
That's why I turned it
very
off. I was like,
non-starter.
nothing's happening. I'm tired. I need to go to bed.
And that I unfortunately, a lot of people are gonna walk away from this with that same feeling. People won't make it past those first 20 minutes, especially if it's on Apple TV on streaming, right?
Yeah.
And uh, that's it's just really unfortunate because I really did have started having fun with this second half, and what particularly with the chase sequence through the Puerto Rican celebration day. That was like a real like, oh, okay, we're here. This is a Spike Lee joint
Yeah.
now. And now we're here, and you can even see some of the techniques he's doing. Like, okay, the detective is going over every single subway station that he's going through. It's like, oh, and it's like cutting to every single station. It's like that's a Spike
Yeah.
Lee thing.
That is, yeah.
And it's like,
Very
okay,
much.
it suddenly feels it's like he exported. It's like what do you call it? Second
unit
unit or
director.
whatever. Yeah. Where it's like, okay,
He's like, I have to watch the
like,
next play. You have to direct this scene.
the first half hour or like 40 minutes was given to that person, and then he took over the rest of the movie. And again, I'm being harsh and exaggerating, but I really can't accentuate how I was like some of the reaction shots in those first 20 to 40 minutes were just like, is this like a soap opera? Like what's
Thank
going
you.
on here? And it's not a rag on the actors because obviously all of them can freaking act. It's real. It comes down to the direction here. It really
Yeah.
does. I'm like, Spike, what the hell are you doing, bro? It's like just hanging on the wife. I'm sorry, the wife's name, but hanging on her for a second. It's like your son's been kidnapped. It's like, and it's like that was not well directed at all. I don't know, or like just shot reaction shot, just why nothing compelling here being done. And I'm not
It's
saying that
clunky.
it's clunky, and I'm not saying every single moment of this has to be like a Spike Lee trying to outdo himself every moment, kind of thing. But it just did not feel. I'm not the foremost expert on Spike Lee. I've seen the biggest hits as well as some of his most recent ones, right? But I feel like that's enough of a vivisection to be like, okay, I, something should be going on here that just quite isn't. I would be more interested to see RB to see like Spike Lee's more subdued works that you think are. Steve, do you have off the top of your head? Do you have a recommendation for like a subdued work that of Spike Lee's that you enjoy? Because
I
for
do.
me, yeah,
I would say Get on the Bus is not as
okay,
maybe like in your face color
right.
palette, lot of editing is sort of thing. 'Cause
It's not
that
like do the right thing, right?
No, not at all. It's similar themes to Do the Right Thing, but that movie, to the cocktail napkin summation of that movie is that it follows a group of black men, like 12 of them. They're on a bus traveling to participate in the Million Man March.
Okay, sure, and even that's a smaller framing. This one's more grandiose, so I
Yes.
get that. Our highest to lowest is more grandiose, feels more like kind of a not an epic, but more in that general direction. Either way, I'm just saying, man, you guys are feeling it too. Those first 40 minutes were really boring compared to the latter point.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
You know,
I definitely hear that. I feel like I didn't react as negatively as you guys. I will say though, it did take the launch pad for this movie. I mean, it definitely favors the runway before it takes
Oh
off.
yeah.
Its
mhm.
wheels are down or its wheels are up for a while, especially in setting the scene. I did like the establishment of sort of I do what I won't trade those moments for is I do like the establishment of where David is at in this particular moment in time. I like the establishment of this guy who ruled the music industry and is kind of finding himself on the outside and is sort of misguidedly, in a way, at least in my opinion, thinking that he can buy back his record company, risk mortgaging him and his wife and his son's future in order to try to capture what was in the past. I also think that's kind of a little bit of sort of an acknowledgement. Again, I've talked about how this movie breaks the fourth wall without literally breaking the fourth wall.
You
That
also
kind
felt
of
like
felt
David King was Spike Lee himself.
I did. I felt though in sort of the situation and the stage of life David King is, I kind of
Yeah.
almost felt like it's not only Spike Lee, but I also think it's kind of like Spike Lee. I mean, you got to remember this is him and Denzel's first collaboration in 19 years. And a lot of people think that, Malcolm X, Spike Lee's movie, that's Denzel's best performance.
Yeah.
And I wonder if just ultimately there was like apprehension going back there, but to marry those two together because they've obviously had success outside of one another, but is doing a movie like this, sort of trying to recapture magic in that way. So I guess I saw that sort of connection to it. Um, and I thought the kidnappings, or at least the sort of the vigilance sequence of delivering the money and stuff like that,
Mhm.
I found that to be very well done. I think that Spike Lee, I think he does epic scale very well when it comes to like focusing like a movie in Bed-Stuy, making a big city like his canvas. I did think that chase scene and that whole sort of like tension of that whole ordeal was well communicated. But the movie does take off way more and become more entertaining and a little bit less, I guess, plotted is what you would say. Maybe less married to what Kurosawa's film was.
You know what? That's a good way of saying it, because the biggest problem I did have with that first half is that it's plot after plot after plot. And it's just like, oh my God, like, can I just have a moment to breathe with some of these characters?
And that's not Spike Lee naturally,
Yeah,
instinctively.
it's
Yeah, it's
not.
weird.
That's why I love Defy Blood so much, and it was one of my favorite movies of that year when we reviewed it. Because it was like you spent so much time with all five of those guys and their son, or one of their sons, and like you got to know those guys, and the plot really didn't start kicking off till about. It's almost like the reverse. The plot of that movie didn't really kick off when they find the gold and everything till about the halfway point in the movie. Um, with the Five Bloods, like it takes the first half to really develop these characters. You get to know them all and everything, so that when shit starts going down, you really care for them. With this movie, it's like, oh my God, plot, 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 and then like when it's finally time to like breathe and everything, you get to know these characters. It's like, oh, the movie's almost over. It's like, oh damn, dude, like I was just getting started. I was just starting to really like these characters and actually really interested in seeing like how they're gonna change by the end of this story. Um, yeah, it was just frustrating for me. By no means do I think it was a bad movie, but it just frustrated and a little bit disappointed, especially coming from someone from like Spike Lee, who I loved his film so much. I was just sitting there like, damn, like this does just feel off, and it's mainly like I'm saying, and all of us are saying, with that first half.
Yeah, I think a part of the issue too, like you said, plot after plot after plot, and we don't get any. But like I was even like compared to like Delroy Lindo's long monologue where he's literally talking to the camera and
Yeah,
walking forward for like what felt like forever, but it was probably like 5 minutes or something. And it's like, yeah, the wind is just sucked out of the sails of this movie before it even left the port. What are
yeah,
we doing here? Come on. And again, being harsh, but you kind of expect more from Spike Lee. I certainly have in his previous works. So I do wonder if this is leaning towards a Miracle of Saint Anna, or what's it called? Right, that
Yeah,
one,
yeah,
yeah, that was him.
which is kind of I think I think that what helped that case is that World War II films are scrutinized to death by World War II fans, heads, historical, pedantic people. But still, I don't know. That's what I'll walk away with right now. I do have a point to make after this. You know,
Yeah, I'm always grateful for new Spike Lee. I think Spike Lee, one of his talents, and I can talk more about this too. We're gonna open after intermission with your point though, Dom.
Mhm.
I what I like about Spike Lee too is that, and it does come through in here a little bit, not as strong as some other works, but he's very good, kind of like Richard Linklater in being intergenerational with his casts and getting actors and actresses from a wide spectrum of different generations to sort of to succeed cohesively. He's not afraid to take a lot of first-time actors or singers or rappers, as is the case in this movie, and sort of fit them into his worldview. I think he's very good at that. I do think that's a strong point here. We'll come back with Dom's additional point with Highest to Lowest, the brand new Spike Lee movie in theaters and currently streaming on Apple TV+. We'll be back in just a few minutes. It's Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube. We will end the show by talking about this. Normally, for when we remember actors or directors or anybody associated with film or pop culture who have died, we start the show with it. But this one, on top of being shocking, I think there's more to unpack with this one than there is a lot of them, because a lot of the time, especially recently, the people who have died have either been sick, like publicly sick, or they've been old enough to the point where it was more or less, as sad to say, expected, but no less sad. This death, as I said in opening the show, really floored me. Morgan Spurlock, the documentarian behind Super Size Me, most famously, the Oscar-nominated movie where Morgan Spurlock underwent the experiment of eating McDonald's 3 times a day for 30 days, passed away at the age of 53 after a private cancer battle. There's no other sort of development related to it. We don't know what kind of cancer it was. I think it would be almost cruel to speculate publicly, at least. But if that name has really escaped your mind over the last several years, nobody could blame you, because, and I wonder, because of how just much of a hurricane in itself the Me Too movement was. I don't think it got lost in the shuffle, but I do think it had I think it had very clear impact. And it was odd timing, too, for a career move. But in December 2017, just as Spurlock was getting ready to release Super Size Me 2, Holy Chicken. By the way, there is a Super Size Me sequel. Joe did not know that. A lot of people didn't know that either. A lot of people didn't know that. And this is probably why. Spurlock wrote a blog post. It was on Twitter. It was like on one of those sites like TwitDecker. Back when you could like write essays on Twitter on like a separate third-party site. It was right in the middle of the Me Too movement. And he came out and he basically admitted to like decades of sexual harassment of employees, misconduct of employees. He got accused of rape when he was in college. I mean, it was a damning self-admission and confession. Initially, I remember reading it, not only being shocked, but I remember reading it like thinking two things. I thought, like, is his next project going to tackle the Me Too movement, and he needs to get this out there in order to like absolve himself and like be completely transparent? Because and I'll talk more in a minute, but was always a documentarian where you didn't really know what was next. And that was one of the things I did admire about him as a filmmaker. But it completely killed his career. Super Size Me 2 got indefinitely delayed. YouTube Red was going to distribute it. They didn't. The movie didn't come out for another year, almost a year and a half. That release got canceled. He stepped down from his production company, Warrior Poets, and then that company folded. And he basically was never heard from again in the public sphere. Yeah. Super Size Me 2 had a super low key release in like September of 2019. Clearly, I feel like I'm only
2019.
2019, yeah.
Oh my God. It
came out a year and a half after it was supposed to come out. And again, evidently nobody paid attention to it besides me. But basically that completely annihilated his career. And the next time you basically heard about him was when he died 7 years later, last week. One of the things, and he's got obviously with just that, he's got a complicated legacy. But looking at him as a documentarian, first off, Super Size Me was oddly one of my favorite movies as a kid. And I can't, I rewatched it late on Saturday night. I rewatched it, which is probably like the 15th time I've seen it. I can quote a documentary. That's how many times I've seen it. The thing about it was, I think what captivated me, I mean, number one, McDonald's wins every kid's heart over. When I was like 9 when the thing came out and saw it. McDonald's wins every kid over. Number two, the movie had a banger soundtrack.
It did.
So much so they released an OST of it. Nice. Like and I have the fucking soundtrack too. That's how much I loved it. I love the soundtrack of the movie. And the other thing I guess I forgot to mention too was about that essay he released was the fact that that essay basically invalidated Super Size Me because he admitted and sort of like blamed in a way like the assault and the misconduct. He was like questioning why he would even do that as somebody who wouldn't recognize himself as somebody to do it. He said something to the tune of, was it because I've been an alcoholic for 30 and haven't been sober a day in my life? Back and better than ever, Sleepless with Steve, live on YouTube, wherever you may be, however you may be listening, returning from our Zoom-sponsored intermission to talk highest to lowest. Dom, you have an additional point that you wanted to make about Spike Lee's latest. What point might that be?
Yes, we are watching the film Highest to Lowest, starring Spike, not starring, directed by Spike Lee. Yes. No. We may have covered this a little bit or alluded to it, but I just want to say how cluttered. Joe, you made the point about plot after plot after plot, and it's like I think this movie was cluttered with messages too much for its own good. And I'm not talking about like the swipes at the Celtics or like the Puerto Rican background of that one chasing. That was just like cool little background stuff.
Yeah.
And that's obviously a message of Lee's, but that can be put to the side. I'm talking like we're talking about class, we're talking about race, we're talking about personal interfamily stuff here, but it feels like none of it is properly explored to its fullest extent, or at least in a clean and engaging way. It doesn't have to be clean, I should say, but in a way that's digestible to the audience. And like it's not like dense or complicated in a way that's engaging or a way that's like, oh, I need to like sit down with this movie. It's like, no, this is just kind of deflating. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I felt that way. I know, Steve, you brought up the whole AI thing and a few other examples you said at the start. I do agree with Dom on a few of those points, that I do feel like they're kind of just tossed in there just maybe to kind of show the time that this story is set in.
Sure.
To separate itself from the remake, of other stuff like that. The only time, though, I do feel like commentary that is being said works is the stuff with David King being old and everything, and like trying to stay relevant and everything, or trying trying to redeem his career or trying to buy back his career. I feel like that worked, but I also, the other one that I thought worked, and it's mainly with the second half, this is probably why I started really enjoying the second half so much, was how society was starting to view David King based on how he was handling the whole kidnapping. Like, you know, like there was the whole thing where he's like, I don't know, maybe I won't pay that money. And they're like, dude, you'll be criticized forever. And even he's just like, yeah, but then they'll move on to the next thing. And then, the news cycle just continues and everything. And I thought like, oh, okay, this is gonna be one of the things he just brings up and leaves. No, it keeps going. Like in the second half, like after the deal is done and everything, and whatnot, it keeps going to where like you actually see the fallout of him being a hero and doing the right thing, no pun intended. And just like, and I was like, oh shit. And then even when A$AP Rocky gets introduced, and then it talks about like what it means to be famous nowadays in the rap scene, and how it's like, dude, it doesn't matter about the music. It matters like, how much like, you can make, like how much impact you're having on social media and how much you're being viewed and everything. And I'm just like, oh shit, like these actually worked into one another here. Like I'm like, this worked right here. But I do agree with you, Dom, that like the first half when it was juggling all these other things, it was like, hey Spike, pick maybe like 2 or 3 of these, all right? Like Boston sucks, redeeming my career, and then just the public eye view of like things. Like let that.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
I'll even say this: they talk about it more than they actually like show it and engage with it. That like that point you made, like yes, that was a very compelling point. And it does, like, there's a small arc and payoff, but it doesn't feel like okay, you can focus. I feel like they could have focused in on that as more, like, milk it, right? Expand on it. I almost feel like, because I understand the plot point about kidnapping the wrong kid. I understand that point, because that's like Kurosawa, that's the story of the Kurosawa film.
Yeah.
I almost feel like they could have dropped that point all completely. I don't think that's a core component of what this is trying to do and be. Or if they are, just focus in on that. Maybe it doesn't speak to us because we're not billionaires. No, but like maybe it doesn't speak to us because we're not in the Black community or something like that. But I feel like it's more universal than that. Yeah. I feel like that's not something we have to necessarily be engaged entirely with to to make sense of all this.
In terms of an arc as well, I do kind of agree with you there. I do feel like the David King we get at the end of this story isn't too much different from the one that started. It's just like it's almost just like we just saw him kind of just change his mind about something. It's still the same guy. He like, you know, and everything. It's like I don't feel the arc here. He's saying all these things to his family and whatnot, but it's like if they made a sequel called Highest to Lowest 2, like, you know, Electric Boogaloo or something, I would just be like
Highest 3 lowest.
Highest 3 lowest. And like it was like David King actually went and like, you know, fell back on his thing and went to go buy back his own record company. I would have been like, yeah, I'm not surprised, because it just didn't feel as satisfying getting to that ending conclusion. Steve, what were you gonna say?
No, that's all fair. I think the other thing that probably bothers all of us in a way, and it did me a little bit too, is that we're used to Spike being a little bit more pointed than this.
Yes.
Because Spike, you know, for all of, you know, the praise, and I think this is one of his best qualities, I really do. For all the praise Spike gets, the one thing that Spike is not typically is subtle. And there's a pop art kind of style to his movies. I mean, Black Klansman literally ends with a black and white upside down American flag.
Yeah.
And you know, and like you know, it
I
literally
don't need
ends,
that. I don't need that, right? But
it didn't feel inappropriate either. It felt, because it
Yeah.
comes after a montage of like the current culture at the time and everything like that.
right. I didn't need that for this film. Yeah, for Highest to Lowest.
Correct. No, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's very pointed. And I also think too, this is a movie too, and I think that this is kind of what undoes it a little bit in the beginning too, is that really dictation and, you know, sticking to plot. We've seen some of my favorite, I just mentioned 3 of my favorite Spike Lee movies, or my 3 favorite: Do the Right Thing, not original, I know, Get on the Bus, and 25th Hour. And all 3 of those movies I've just been thinking about over the last like 40 minutes or so. All 3 of those movies, they're not plotless, but to describe those movies is to describe the characters, or this, in 25th Hour's case, the central character of Edward Norton.
Yeah.
You know, it's not so much a point A to point B seg. It's the characterization of the individuals coupled with the characterization of the setting, which is more often than not New York, you know, plays into his style very prominently. And I think with this movie, he's a little bit more like, I think he had the statements before he had the plot. And the thing I give him though, and this is why I think it's weird to me, because it's almost like I'm praising the structure of the movie and the concept of the movie more than the actual movie itself. But it's kind of shocking too, in a way, that Spike Lee took on another remake, because Old Boy is often considered to be his worst movie. I've sat through it. It's pretty much a shot-for-shot remake of the 2003 film, the Korean film that got so much praise. And so it's kind of shocking he went the direction to take on another reboot too, or a remake.
Yeah.
But what he does though here, I think, is sort of an external commentary on what he wants to see, where like he uses Kurosawa's framework up to a point, and then it's like the second hour, then it gets him to where he kind of wants to go in like this intergenerational duality between Denzel Washington's David King and A$AP Rocky's Young Felon. Like it sort of gets him to a certain point, and it's often kind of like reimagining art, not setting out to like copy what was once great or great before, but trying to add a new spin on art. I don't think it's completely successful, but I do think his intention here is worth merit, because this is more than just a remake.
100%. 100%. But I don't even need to say but to that. Just more so, I wish we can probably pivot. Do you have anything more to say? Because I can even take the first close on
Go
this.
for it if you like.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, man. For me, this is a 2 out of 4 star movie. Just the raw power of this cast is good enough for me, where it is enjoyable. And I always love my parents, especially my dad. They're a good metric for like, what does the suburban person that doesn't really engage much with the plot or meaning or message of these movies, I just kind of sit there and watch Denzel Washington be Denzel Washington, right? Well, what do they think on this? And he loved it. He absolutely loved it. So for me, that probably means like I'm probably gonna think it's all right. But compared to, and here's the thing, just reinforcing my earlier points. The name of Spike Lee's production company is 40 Acres and a Mule. If there was ever a time for that message to be more pertinent, it's probably something with it's 2025, right? And he's the guy who's gonna make that point. Does every film of his need to make a point? No,
No.
it doesn't need to make that kind of point. But what I do expect from him is for something more engaging. And engaging doesn't mean touching on every single thing under the book, but yes, as Steve put it, that was the word of the day for me, is pointed. Something more pointed, something clearer, something that maybe not even digestible, but more so that's clearer to me. And that muddiness was something that I had to fight through this film. So 2 out of 4 stars for me.
You can go, Joe.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I mean, kind of going off of what you said, Dom, like, yeah, I'm not expecting Spike to make a Black Klansman, a The Five Bloods with every movie he makes where he's making a commentary on something. I'm fine if he wants to do an Inside Man, like, where it's just like, hey, no, this is just a crime movie. That's all it is. Like, it's just a crime thriller movie. I'm going to tell a good story with my filmmaking techniques and my trademarks, and I'm going to get a cast that, I want to work with. I'm all down when he wants to do that. Inside Man's, if I had to choose a top 3, I mean, it's up there with Do the Right Thing, and I would have to look at his list again to see what I would choose for a third film. Even though I love The Five Bloods, it wouldn't be that. Maybe it would be Ride the Bus then. Anyways, with that being said, it is 2.5 out of 4 stars for me. It won me over in the second half. Had it not done that, I probably would have ended up where Dom was more. I wasn't crazy about most of, like I said, I wasn't crazy about most of the performances in this movie, so that wasn't even winning me over in the first half. But in the second half, when it focuses more on David and even Paul, and then eventually Young Thug played by A$AP Rocky, I was like, okay, I actually like watching these 3 do their thing. Like, this is great. Everybody else, like, that soap opera feel, and I'm not saying the quality of the film, like the quality of the movie was soap opera. But with that music and those reaction shots,
the music.
I was waiting for, like, when the wife did "My son is kidnapped," and then it was like focusing on her. I was waiting for an hourglass to pop up, and so does the time, stands the time as the day of our life. And I was just like, oh shit! All right, that's what Spike is making here.
Like, that was very close to my same reaction. Yes.
It just like. Maybe that's why I wasn't all crazy about the performances, because I don't want to say I don't want to necessarily say people were bad in this movie. It's just, it wasn't selling it to me. It could be because the music is very much undercutting what they're saying, and it could be just the reaction shots are being held on too long. Also, I know Spike loves to do weird editing, and I love his weird editing in the movies, but the sometimes double like reaction shot where it's a character picking up a phone and slamming it down, and then we cut to another camera but farther away now, and he's picking up the phone and slamming it down. I'm like, that was weird. All right, like, I don't know why he did that, but sure. It just felt out of place, and it like those kind of things where it's like stylistically, I would love Spike to do, became more distracting than helping the film. But like I said, second half of the film won me over. I loved how much it started picking up. I loved what it was saying there, and I started loving what it was doing with the story. And letting the characters actually breathe and get to know them a little bit more. It sucks that it took halfway through the movie to get there. And sometimes I say, like, oh, if a movie gets better as it goes along, I'll like it. But a movie's got to get better as it's going along, like, early. It can't be, okay, we're 45 minutes left and now it's getting better of this 2-hour and 20-minute film. It's just like, no. It needs to be like past like 30 minutes, it starts to get better. It's like, okay, you know what? I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. You just had to get everything set up. You had to get your chess pieces in place. But it's like, this dude was like, okay, I'm going to set up the chessboard, and I'm also going to paint each tile for you, and then I'll put the pieces on there. And it was just like, oh, damn, Spike, let's hurry this up a bit. But overall, 2.5 out of 4 stars.
Yeah, I'll add on to the one person we didn't really talk about too much in this movie, who I thought turned in a really good performance too, as did Denzel. I thought Denzel was excellent. Typically, I mean, it's almost redundant to mention how excellent he is. Jeffrey Wright, though, is such a good actor. He plays the chauffeur in the movie, David King's best friend. Just, I thought, a really good character, really well done performance by him. Yeah, like I said, I finished this movie just about an hour before we went live, so I was still kind of even formulating my thoughts as talking them through. I think I've settled on, if I have to quantify it, 2.5 out of 4 stars myself too. There is a degree of messiness in this movie that I really wasn't expecting from Spike. I think it has some really good qualities to it, especially in the realm of its dialogue and especially in the second act, its dialogue, its characterizations too, sort of the moral quandary of David King being explored, I think is fascinating. Completely unrelated to anything related or pertaining to the film's quality though. I don't know if you guys noticed this or not, and I don't believe this was intentional, but there was 3 references or 3 moments where I was like, hey, they're referencing the Denzel Washington cinematic universe here. The one moment comes in the time when David King is talking with when Jeffrey Wright's son's kidnapped, and he tells him he goes, well, what he throws out like, oh, well, in the court of John Q. Player, and I'm like, hey, he was in John Q. I remember that. There was another moment when David King tells his son Trey, he says, everything I do for you.
Fences.
That was a line in Fences,
Yeah.
Viola Davis. Everything that boy do, he do for you. And then there's the time when Denzel's talking to, when David King's talking to young Felon and says, I'm the brutalizer. I was like, nah, you're the equalizer.
Yeah. I caught the Fences one. I didn't catch the other 2.
Yeah.
Because when he says when he's having that, which I think is one of the best scenes in the movie, is the conversation with his son. When he says, everything I do, I'm gonna say, I do for you, I do for you, I do for you. And I'm like, yeah, that's it. Anyway, completely irrelevant point, but yeah, no, this is not high. This is not going to make a really high mark, I think, on Spike Lee's filmography. I think it's a good, not great movie at the end of the day. I think this is one of those movies too. It's technically, and actually funny enough too, it's not written by Spike Lee. The credited writer is Alan Fox in the movie. The credited writer is Alan Fox. Now, I believe Lee had quite a bit of input or whatever, maybe wanted to give it to Alan Fox or something like that. The majority credit to him. But I also think that this movie kind of has, and I thought this sort of by the end, this movie kind of has a little bit of a first draft or second draft feel to it.
It does, yes.
It has a little bit of a second draft feel. And to go, or your earlier point about a soap opera style, I think it's because, quite frankly, where you're getting it from, I think it's because we spend so much of the first part of the movie in David King's palatial, luxury apartment. Everything is so staid and perfect. It's kind of like, in a different way, it's kind of, Dom, you'll get this because we talked about this a couple weeks ago. It's kind of like Pansy's home in Hard Truths. It doesn't even look lived in. It doesn't even look lived in.
But there was a reason for that, because no one in that movie is truly living their life.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, that was a total, that was more symbolic, if of anything. Not so much a stylistic choice, but not so much just a negative. It was more germane to the character and the situation in which the character's in. But yeah, it's 2.5 out of 4 for me. I'm not gonna lie though, I did turn it off wanting a little bit more from Spike's first movie in 5 years. I don't know how many more he's got left. He clearly has a lot. He's doing a lot of producing now, and he's doing a lot of putting his name on like ESPN miniseries and stuff like that. He's doing a lot of other things. I think this movie too was kind of, especially with David King's attitude, kind of reflects his sort of disenfranchisement with the current state of Hollywood too. So I don't know how many more Spike Lee movies we've got left. I hope we've got more, because I always love Spike Lee. I think he's a treasure of a person, and I think he's just a phenomenal filmmaker who really always puts forth an interesting effort, if nothing else. Outside of Oldboy, there really hasn't been a movie of his I've objectively disliked.
I have to say, honestly, the same. Oldboy, if I had to think of it, which is why I'm actually kind of glad that, I actually enjoyed this movie, because at the halfway point, I was like, oh shit, Spike, please don't tell me you just did another Oldboy by taking another foreign film and doing an American remake. No, Oldboy, if I had to choose just one movie from him that I actually just did not like, it's just that one. Everything else I've either thought has been good, okay, or fantastic. And more often than not, I've thought it's fantastic.
She Gotta Have It's great. Girl 6 is great too.
Girl 6 is great. Yes.
You have seen Girl 6.
Yes, we watched that in my high school film class.
That's an interesting one because that movie, real quick before we sign off, that's a movie that is very hard to find now.
Yeah.
That is probably his least accessible movie. It is, I'm not going to lie, I had to watch it online when I watched it because it's not, the DVD is absurdly expensive. It's not streaming anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's really like his forgotten movie. Tarantino's in it.
Yeah, John
Tarantino's in it.
Turturro's in it as well.
You know, it's a really interesting movie about a woman who like takes up being a phone sex operator.
It's really crazy too, because like what our professor did, and I shouldn't say professor, but our teacher did at high school was like it was one of the movies like he would throw in a couple one of these where at the time it got panned by critics and audiences, but then over time
it was not highly rated.
Yeah, over time, like it was one of those films he was just like, but then over time it got like a second life. And he was just like, he's like, I remember seeing this in theaters thinking like, oh, I guess I'm the odd man out. And now he's like, years later, people like it. So like when the movie ended, he asked us what we thought. We were all like, oh, like that was actually like really good. We shared our expresses and everything. And he pulled out like a bunch of review articles. He like photo scanned and everything for us to read and whatnot. He's like, no, this is what the review was at the time. And he would do that. And it ultimately led us to writing a paper about like, rebirth of another, like how a film can be rebirthed again and how like, later down the line it can have like something. We got to choose from like the 6 films that he did that with. It was like such a fun assignment to do it with too.
If I ever got the opportunity to talk to or interview Spike Lee, one of the questions I would throw in is why the fuck is Girl 6 so inaccessible?
Because he'd probably be like, "You tell me."
you want to hear what's funny? I looked it up on eBay just for the hell of it. There's a copy actually in Geneva, Illinois. $295 fucking dollars.
Dude, I gotta find what fucking boutique shop has that.
Look at your Goodwill. Check your Goodwills. $170, $194. Those are the only 3 copies I can find on eBay. This thing is so inaccessible. It's not on any streaming service. I had to watch it on one of those sites you really got to make sure your virus protection works okay before you click on. That's how I had to watch the damn thing because I really wanted to watch it. And it's like, well, there's no legal way to watch it, and there's no way to watch it and support the actual movie. You know what I mean?
If you wanted to buy the DVD from Amazon, it's $280. If you somehow were one of those crazy motherfuckers who are like, I'm never getting rid of my VHS tape or VHS player, the tape is $100.
And that's what I would do. That's what I sometimes do for inaccessible movies. I look at the tape because I still have a VCR.
Yeah.
I look at how much the tape goes for, and the tape is high even too because that had to be one of those. I guarantee that movie did not get that many copies either made because that's one of his most forgotten movies, and you can see why.
Yeah,
I keep waiting for him to do. I don't even know if there's much interest, but I'm surprised he hasn't. What I think happened is kind of the same thing that happened with Hoodwinked, was with when the Weinstein Company fell, nobody owned the rights to it, so that movie's like in limbo. That's why Hoodwinked is not available on anything. I think it's kind of a similar situation. And it's just funny to think a movie that was made in 1996 is just fucking inaccessible. Yeah. And this is not like a low-key indie feature either. You know what I mean? But yeah, anytime I could talk about Girl 6. And that was a movie, I didn't love it, but I liked it enough. I liked it enough where I'm like, this is the one. I've heard a lot of commentary about all Spike's movies, and this, even Crooklyn. And this is not the one. This is the one that gets the least amount of attention. That was part of the reason I wanted to watch it too. But at any rate, though, that is our show, Highest to Lowest. It is on Apple TV Plus, and it's still streaming, or it's still playing in some theaters as well. Next week is The Long Walk, which is going to be very interesting. I'm expecting a very intense movie. That movie is directed, I believe, by Francis Lawrence, who directed several of the Hunger Games movies, too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, he directed all of them, Catching Fire onward.
Yeah, he didn't do the first one. He did the sequel, and then pretty much was the go-to director for those movies as well. So I'm excited to see this one because this one looks brutal. This one looks really brutal for what is kind of looks like I know it's Stephen King, but it's like kind of looks like young adult fiction. But I'm like, I want to read some interviews because I feel like that's what gravitated him towards it. Because like he really does like directing those Hunger Game movies. It's why he came back to do the prequel one as well as the new book that came out. And I'm wondering like, man, like he's so good at adapting stuff. Like he's a great director when it comes to adapting material, original material, not so much. Like outside of Hunger Games, he's done other stuff too, adapting wise. And I'm wondering if like this has always been like maybe a dream project for his, because like it's just like
at first when I saw they were doing it, I was like, okay, whatever, just another Stephen King movie to fill in the gap for August.
It's lost
And then,
so much luster, that name, over the years.
Yeah, and then I saw it got pushed to September, and I'm like, the last Stephen King movie they did that with was It, where it was originally supposed to come out in October, and then they pushed it back to September. And I was like, I wonder. And then I saw the reviews like come out a month early, and I'm like, oh shit, they got faith in this movie. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it kind of got the alternate treatment. Usually it's the opposite. Is this thing, I haven't read a ton about it either. Do we know, is it rated R?
It is rated R.
It is rated R. Good. Yeah, I was wondering about that.
I think what is it? Stephen King said, I typed in The Walk, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, it's PG-13. That's the one with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. It had to be R. I think that was like one of Stephen King's things. He said 2 things that it has to be. It has to be rated R, and he's like, change it from 4 miles per hour to 3 miles per hour. I don't know why the second one, but he did want it to be R no matter what.
I would be so fucking dead in that world, it wouldn't even be funny. I would be so. I was, you're talking to the guy that used to be one of the 3rd or 4th guys to drop out of the pacer test. You know what I mean?
How did you survive walking across campus, bro? That fucking rectangle of a campus was
nobody
so
was
annoying.
timing me. Nobody was timing me. Like, I didn't get graded on how fast I walked. I listened to music, and then the spring in my step got even bouncier.
Yeah.
At any rate, we will quit here, though. It is Sleepless with Steve live on YouTube. Next week, we're tackling The Long Walk. Looking very much forward to it. Good to have the gang back together, and once again next week as well. Appreciate you gentlemen making the time. Good to have you back, Joe. For Joe Viso, Dominic Guanzon, and yours truly, this has been Sleepless with Steve.